Hey everyone, Enrique here. Welcome to another video. On today's video is going to be something different. I decided to introduce a new segment in which I like to call the Media Yard. Now, the purpose of the Media Yard is to focus on unmade movies, TV shows, maybe focus on discarded scripts or casting that was never made or never got into the finishing stages, and dissect and give my thoughts about it. The reason why I decided to do this is because I always found it fascinating to talk about movies and TV shows that were never made or they were already ready to release but they were then canceled. It's something interesting to see those unmade concepts or seeing those castings and movies and TV shows that had an idea and had some initiative, but then later on they were discarded for many reasons. It's the nature of the business, is what I'm trying to say. It's something that we always look back and say, hey, what if? It's actually one of those fun games that we always like to say, what if this thing was made, or what if this decision was different from the previous one? I mean, we always ponder of the what if game. We always wonder, hey, if this movie was made, how would the landscape of the movie industry would look nowadays if it was made like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or even 50 years ago? It's something that we always pondered. And hey, why not talk about those things and say, why not? That's one of the beauties about the yards. I mean, if you go to a scrapyard, if you found something that was old and discarded by people, maybe you can repurpose it into something different, maybe something new and good. That's what's fun of making videos like this, because you look back at all those ideas, all those concept arts, all those casting choices that they never got into the final stages or even into the pre-production. It's always fun to ponder. So why not talk about this in this video? So I'm going to take a look of a movie that was canceled. I'm going to talk about what was the idea behind it, what were the stories that they were going to implement, the casting choices, and the media that was going to be released, and give my thoughts on the overall project, how it never got into the final stage, and what happened ever since then. And maybe ponder if they were going to use it in the future. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. And with all that being said, let's start this new segment by asking ourselves one simple question. Why the hell did they keep screwing up Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl? No, seriously, every time I see Batgirl in other forms of media that were not in the comics or even in the comics itself, not only does she get miscast, victimized, and even put into a situation that wasn't even for her in the first place, even with a great writer. And yeah, today is no exception, since I'm going to take a look at the already canceled Batgirl movie. So this story has been talked by other people in other videos in YouTube and hell, in other sources of internet. I mean, this is something that has been pondering and bothering a lot of people ever since the cancellation. So I think this is the perfect movie for me to talk about, since there are a lot of behind the scenes shoots and video recordings. We see a lot of the ideas and concept arts that were supposed to be for this movie, the media, the cast, everything. We're going to talk about it. So yeah, this is not just for me to start a new segment, but it's also to remind ourselves the stupidity of some Hollywood studios. So let's talk about a little history. Believe it or not, Batgirl was already in pre-production hell for many years. Specifically, there was the idea that Joss Whedon was going to direct the next DC movie, since he jumped ship from Marvel to DC. So he had the idea of directing a DC movie, but one that was focused on a woman. In this case, he had two options: Wonder Woman or Batgirl. And in the case of Wonder Woman, it's another can of worms that I dare not to open today, but let's just say that it puts Joss into a horrible perspective, if it wasn't already. Nevertheless, he left Marvel and he had an agreement with the then president Walter Hamada to create a new movie for DC Studios, so the two options that he chose was Batgirl. So he was working on the story, but then somewhere along the line it didn't work out for him. He just said that he couldn't crack the story, that he felt a little heartbroken because of that, which we all know that cannot be true, because keep in mind, Joss Whedon was the one who shot the scenes for the new Justice League version that was coming out in 2017. That whole drama, it's already something that one day I might talk about, but I already mentioned a little bit in my Zack Snyder Justice League review that I did all those years ago. Yes, it was something that created a lot of drama for him. It brought a lot of discussions about his behavior. So let's just say that he just couldn't be there anymore. So the idea and the movie for Batgirl was in development hell for a couple of years, until two directors step up to direct the new movie for HBO Max. This is where the directors Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah were chosen to direct the new movie that was starring Batgirl. So they decided to work around the story, which they already cracked it. The casting was underway, and the story they already created. Now, it's important to mention that Adil and Bilal already had history directing other stories in other forms of media. They were the men responsible for bringing back the Bad Boys to the screen, as well as creating a show for Marvel called Ms. Marvel, which is, in my opinion, one of my favorite shows from Disney+. And they show a lot of talent and a lot of good cinematography and story idea. So it's good that they were behind this new project, and they created a story that was specifically for her and how Batgirl was going to become the next new Gotham protector. So what was the story about? That's the question, right? Well, the idea was supposed to be like an amalgamation from the original story of the origin of Batgirl combined with the new 52 version of her. It was supposed to be the idea that Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, became the superhero after losing her mother. You see, the story focused on her as a child being in a dance class, but then seeing a karate class which she was more interested in to be a part of. Then one night, her and her father were not at home in their apartment, and then all of a sudden the apartment caught fire. Barbara's mother was there, and she died from the fire. It was seen that one of the guys who was responsible for all this is a man called Firefly, who is played by Brendan Fraser. More on that later, but needless to say, over the years, Barbara decided to work with GCPD alongside her father, who was already old, probably retired or about to be retired. But regardless of that, she wanted to find out the man responsible for the death of her mother. She was invited to a party alongside her friends and her boyfriend that she acquired when she was a child, when she met when they were children, basically. Nowadays they are dating. They went to a party which was hosted by Bruce Wayne. Then some bad guys came into the picture, which forces her in the Batman suit that she was wearing to fight the criminals, and gave her the idea to become a Batgirl, deciding to use all the resources that she acquired from the GCPD alongside her father, who doesn't know that she's Batgirl, of course, getting some equipment that she acquired from the crime scenes, and decided to do the investigation. She finds out about the criminals, she decides to fight them, and find out who is Firefly and what was his end goal by killing her mother. That was the original story. And it also involved a potential romantic triangle between Barbara, her boyfriend, and a criminal called, I can't remember the name, but it was supposed to be played by Jason Scipio. Now, Jason Scipio already worked with the directors in the Batgirl movies, so this one's a natural option for him to be a part of. So yeah, it would have been almost like a crime drama, a romantic comedy, or a romantic trio, I don't know, and also an origin story for Batgirl. So that was the story behind it. Now, what about the casting? Well, that's where we are going to see. So, the Batgirl for this movie was going to be played by Leslie Grace. Now, Leslie Grace, I don't know very much about her, but she is a musician in media in the United States. She's also half a Latino American, so that's a plus. But yeah, she was casted as Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl. Other casting members were J.K. Simmons, aka J. Jonah Jameson, going back to be playing Commissioner James Gordon. Now, we already saw J.K. Simmons playing as Commissioner Gordon in the Justice League movie. It was supposed to be a story also focused about him, how he lost his wife and he has been trying to find out the man responsible for it, but we don't know very much about his involvement into the picture. Jacob Scipio, sorry, I said Jason Scipio, but it's actually Jacob Scipio. He's supposed to be playing a mob boss. In this case, I see now that he's been playing, he was going to play Anthony Bresci, which is the son of a mob boss, and then he became a mob boss maybe during the movie. That's hard to say. Other casting choices were Brendan Fraser as Firefly. Now, it's important to tell you that Firefly has a different name in the comics and in other media. And what in this movie was supposed to be a new character called Ted Carson. The idea was supposed to be that he was a disgruntled veteran who became a paramaniac and a sociopath. He felt disgruntled by the system, so he became Firefly to burn everything, which is almost like a parallel to Batgirl's story. Like, she's trying to put the pieces back together to her life. All the while we see Firefly trying to burn everything to the ground, thinking that everything is going to be better afterwards. So that was also the idea. Other casting choices were involving Rebecca Front, also Corey Johnson, who are, of course, if you don't know these people, they were also in other movies and TV shows. You probably remember Corey Johnson from being in the Morbius movie, talking into his jacket walkie-talkie. But that's a story for another day. I'll already reviewed it if you want to check it out. Ivory Aquino was supposed to play Alicia Yao, who is not only Barbara's best friend, but was also a trans girl in the comics, and Ivory is also a trans woman in real life, so this was a perfect match. But of course, let's not forget that there was supposed to be another version of Batman here, and that is Bruce Wayne Batman, who is going to be played by Michael Keaton. Now, I know what you're thinking. Michael Keaton in this version of Batgirl? How's that possible? I'm gonna get into that later, but needless to say, this was the thing that made the news. I mean, a movie with Batgirl and Michael Keaton is back as Batman? I mean, and we also see it behind the scenes that he was in full costume with the Batmobile and everything. So yeah, this was precedented, and we don't know how it will look like with this new version, but that's something that a lot of people were excited about. As I said before, The movie was supposed to be a HBO Max release, since the idea was also to be just like Marvel by releasing a movie not only on the big screen but also on the streaming service. Similar to Marvel, they were going to create shows and movies for that streaming platform. And the idea was supposed to be that something small can be a great view catcher for all the audiences. That if you put a movie about Batgirl in the streaming service with those casting choices and those stories, then maybe you acquire an audience. Now let's talk about Michael Keaton being Batman in this version of Batgirl movie. So if you saw the Flash movie, you probably were wondering what was going to happen to Michael Keaton as Batman had things never changed. Well, if you've seen the behind the scenes, as well as talk about other people about the original idea for the ending of that movie, which was problematic to say the least. Not the whole movie was so problematic, but focus on this. What was supposed to be the original ending for that movie was for Flash that changed the entire timeline. Michael Keaton got integrated into this new timeline from another universe alongside Sasha Calle's Supergirl. And the idea was supposed to be that he replaced Ben Affleck as Batman in this new universe. Then Michael Keaton was going to be the Batman from the 80s, being still active on this era alongside other heroes. And this movie was supposed to be him already being shown in the new timeline, giving Batgirl a little bit of advice and guidance, similar to what we saw with Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Tony Stark's Iron Man. The idea was supposed to be that the young generation of superheroes learning from the already old one, the established one. And it was supposed to conclude with Michael Keaton's Batman giving Batgirl a new suit and new gadgets, so she can be a much better protector for the city of Gotham. Now, of course, they don't learn about each other's secret identities, but the idea was set that Michael Keaton was going to be the next Batman for future movies. So yeah, you have the directors, you have a casting choice, you already have the story, the production was underway, they shot a lot of action sequences, a lot of scenes that were key for the movie. So the question remains, what went wrong? The short answer, everything. But longer answer, it all started with the whole Warner Media Discovery merger. You recall that during that period when they were shooting, Batgirl was in the mix of the Warner Brothers and Discovery merger that they were trying to sell, and they got merger into Discovery. And then during those hellish productions, we learned that the Batgirl movie was canceled by David Zaslav. Now, I normally don't like to call out people, or I don't like to insult them. But David Zaslav in this case is a stupid idiot. And I'm not making any assumptions about it, because the reason why he canceled this movie, according to him, of course, I'm going to read a script or a quote line from him saying that we're not going to put a movie out unless we believe in it, and that's it. That's the excuse that he went when he canceled the Batgirl movie. But the reason why he did this, and this is something that you're going to be shocked by this if you already haven't heard the news, is that he used the cancellation as a tax write-off. This is not the first time he has done it. You remember Coyote vs. Acme, the movie that is going to be released this year? Well, it was canceled because it was supposed to go out years ago, but then David Zaslav said, no, we're not gonna make this movie. Yeah, you already made it, you already had the shots, I don't care. I'm gonna cancel it and use it as a tax write-off, which was pretty shady to say the least. Not to mention that he held a test screening on the audience in a movie theater, trying to show what was supposed to be the idea, and the people were already rejecting it, which you have to remember, this is a movie that was supposed to be made for a streaming service. It was not supposed to be meant to be released on theaters. And you can say, oh, well, what's the difference? The difference is because movies have a lot of billions of dollars to be made. TV shows only have like a fraction or even a million. And they don't have enough resources to do a lot of action sequences. Disney can't do that because they have more money and expenses that they could afford. But Warner Brothers are not in that same level, and it shows. But yeah, he used that. He also made what it was referred to as a funeral test screening for Batgirl, which is completely horrible to hear, but it happened. And the worst part is that the duo didn't know about this until they found out when they were in a friend's wedding. Can you believe that? They canceled the movie while the duo directors were in another country celebrating a best friend's wedding. And the quote of them, one in particular, said that I went on the server, everything was gone. We were like effing S. Sorry if I don't say any curse words. All the scenes with Batman in them. So yeah, they didn't get the entire movie deleted, but they were kicked out of the server, so they couldn't release the Batgirl movie, and we don't know where it is. It could be sitting on a warehouse right now or in another person's computer. Regardless of that, we have to wait and see if someone is going to be bold enough or have the cojones to release all that footage to the media. But we don't know, and we have to see if the directors or even someone else has the idea of release that footage. Now the question remains, what now? I mean, with everything that we have seen from these news outlets, from these ideas, what is next for Batgirl? Well, unfortunately, we won't see the version of Leslie Grace as Batgirl on any media, not even in movies or TV shows. But now that James Gunn is the new head of DC alongside Peter Safran, we have to see if he has something for Batgirl. I mean, he said that he wanted to do something with that character as well, alongside all the other Bat family members. So we have to wait and see. But regardless of that, I want you to take a moment to realize and ponder what was the whole point of canceling the movie. Like, I know, DC was not in a good state, even with the whole changes they made behind the scenes. Walter Hamada left so James Gunn and Peter Safran can step in. We've seen other movies before the James Gunn takeover, and we saw the failure of Black Adam. We saw the modern success of Blue Beetle, but we saw a lot of changes and we saw a lot of differences, and hard to say. I will say this, the cancellation of Batgirl was so shady that a lot of people, like the cast, Michael Keaton and Brendan Fraser, Kevin Smith in his podcast, and even the president of Marvel, Kevin Feige, voiced their displeasure of this cancellation, because it shows you that it's something that Brendan Fraser said in a podcast, like, I don't eat half a meal, or I don't eat half a steak, I eat the whole steak. And in this case, we have half of the steak for Batgirl, because she was supposed to debut in this, and regardless of what would the movie would look like, if it was going to be good or bad, to see people put in their blood, sweat, and tears being canceled in such a shady manner and not being able to show their talent or even show what was supposed to be about. I mean, you can say, oh, it happens in Hollywood all the time, but in the case of David Zaslav, the way he did it, it was so douchebaggery, if that's a word. But yeah, he did the wrong call, and that's something that We don't know. I don't know what the state of him is, especially with all the news of the merger between Paramount and Warner Brothers. But all I can say is that everything that he did and what he did to Batgirl and the people who work on this film was horrible. He shouldn't have never been in charge. And if this is the way he was behaving before, let me tell you, that is scary. But regardless of my opinions, regardless of everything, the movie was canceled, and hopefully someday someone will take a look at this and say, hey, maybe I can use some of those ideas and trying to shape it into what I'm trying to work on. We don't know, but we have to wait and see. But yeah, nothing to review here, but let's just say that this is something that I hope everyone can realize, that unmade movies sometimes, especially when they already have finished, they deserve to be shown. And even if the product was bad, they should be allowed to be shown so we can make our own conclusions. But yeah, that is my thoughts on the Unmade Batgirl movie. I hope you guys enjoy this. And yeah, I have more ideas and more stories that I want to share with you about unmade movies. And there are plenty to talk about. So we have to wait and see. Until then, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know in the comment section below if you have more information about this, if you like the video or not. And if you like it, give it a like so I can see that you guys care about. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. And I'll see you next week into another review, this time concluding my Daredevil reviews. So until then, I've been Enrique, and I'll see you next time. Peace.